IVM.
Hi,
You're
listening to IVM.
daily.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of IVM Daily, the show where IVM staffers talk about what's on their mind and what's going around the world. I'm Gaurav and today I'm joined by Amit in the studio.
Hey, how's it going, dude?
All good, all good. So, a year ago at this time, I was super worried because, my exams had just finished. I was graduating and I had no job. And it took me a really, really long time to end up at IVM.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, without any interview experience, I was pretty scared of actually getting it.
Right.
So, as an employer, Amit, what are you looking out today for potential interns or people joining the company? What do you look out for in an applicant?
So there are a lot of different things you look for, right? It's not an exact science. You got to find the right kind of people. And in these non-traditional businesses, the quality of your team determines how much you're going to be able to do, right? So it's an important decision from the employer side as well, who you're going to hire, especially in a startup kind of scenario, right? So
Correct.
I am pretty picky about getting people on board, right?
Thank you.
It is not... it's not a kind of take whoever you can get kind of deal over here, right? So there are a few things that are kind of just basic, right? Which I do see some problems with, right? So I guess the first problem people have is how do you get the interview? How do you get the opportunity to interview, right? That's the first question. And honestly, for me, what works is if somebody sends a cover letter, which I can tell they have clearly looked into what the company does.
Uh-huh.
That's like the number one kind of that's the first kind of thing, right? If you send a generic cover letter saying, "Dear sir, I want to participate in your organization and I feel that, I can bring great value to you." And, you just, if I get something generic like that, that's not like a negative, but it's not an automatic interview call either. Right. But if somebody writes me an email saying, "Hey, I've been a big fan of IVM podcasts. I've been following the thing. I really want to get into the podcasting space. And I know that you guys are the guys who I should talk to." If I get an email like that, and I get some emails like that, right? That is an automatic interview no matter what the guy's background is, right? Even if the background is completely, has nothing to do with what we're doing. It's not a media background. It's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he is interested in the space, the fact that he's interested in what we're doing is just like, okay, I want to at least talk to this guy. Right? So that kind of, I think...
You get some insight from someone who's actually interested in the company.
Exactly.
And you understand what works. Even if you're not looking to hire that person, at least they get an interview and they...
You want to talk to them, right? You want to find out
Correct.
what there is, right? See, again, a lot of people, it's not like there are people with... this applies mostly to podcasting, I guess, but they're not it's not like there are 25 people or there are 25,000 people with 10 years of experience in podcasting.
Right.
So I'm having to pick people from different slightly adjacent fields anyway.
Uh-huh.
So I don't mind how adjacent it gets as long as there is a kind of aptitude towards this kind of stuff. And how do you find that? You find that by looking at the first interaction, right? The first interaction I have with somebody is a cover letter that they send. Before the resume, I see the cover letter.
Right.
Right? By cover letter, the body of the email that they've sent out, right? That's the first thing I see. And if I see there is interest at that point, then I'm going to call that person in no matter what.
Okay.
So I guess that's the first step. How do you get the interview, right? Then the next thing is what do you do when you come to an interview?
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing that really, really gets me, that really puts me off, is after you get the interview, okay? Before you get the cover letter, I understand you haven't done much research because at that point in time, listen, I've looked for jobs too. It's kind of, spray and pray. You send out 1,000 resumes and you hope that you get 10 interviews and, I get that that's how that works.
Yeah.
But when you're called for an interview, at that point in time, if you don't do research about the company, that's an automatic out.
Correct. Yeah.
That at that point, if you don't know what is going on in that company, what kind of work they're doing, and again, publicly accessible website data. Not saying that you have to go and call somebody who works over here and get info. No. But you should know what we do, right? I've had people come in thinking that they're coming for journalism, to write for a website.
Oh, man.
I've had people come in who think they're coming for straight journalism, to write for a website. I've had people who come in for thinking they're doing a video job. And, I mean, like, it is...
Without really even knowing what a podcast is.
Exactly. So, I mean, like, at that point in time, it doesn't really matter how qualified you are, right? Because what that says to me is that, and this is not for a fresher necessarily, this could be fresher, this could be somebody with experience, but, I mean, like, what that tells me is that you are willing to spend, it's Bombay, so it's probably taking you an hour to get here, an hour to go back. Right from where we are. You're going to spend an hour over here at the office talking to 2 or maybe even 3 people about, like, what we're expecting out of you, right? And if you're willing to spend those 3-4 hours without spending 20 minutes on our website, that is a big red flag to me, right? So, I mean, like, that is kind of that's something which, I mean, like, is an automatic this. And I'd strongly suggest to anybody who gets an interview, make sure that you do your research on your company. Google the person who's going to interview you. Today, Google makes it easy to find anybody, right? I mean, like, look them up on LinkedIn, see what their background is, see what their history is. I mean, like, but knowing some stuff as a prospective employee about the company that you're interviewing with, I think that is tremendously helpful. And I mean, like, a kind of sort of corollary to both of these points, right, is... So I don't know how much of a problem this is, but I think it is a problem. And to me, it's another red flag, right? I often get emails, especially when you're applying for, or rather when you are making job postings on job sites. I get emails from people with such weird email addresses. And it's just like, why would you not create
Powerpuff Girl Lover 99.
I kid you not. I have actually had a resume submitted to me. Sachin Tendulkar is a god at yahoo.com.
Oh my God.
Or something along those lines. Might have been Yahoo or whatever. But that's not the email address you use when you are sending out your resume, right? I mean, like, you should have an email address which is your name and your last name, and maybe you need a couple of numbers to unique it.
This is such a basic thing. I mean, it's surprising how few people would even, like, think of that as an issue. Like,
but again, these are red flags, right? And I mean, like, see, the thing is that it's hard enough to get a job. Right? So you don't want to put up any red flags for people, just like, things which people will be like, wait, what?
Right.
I mean, like, you don't want to put up any of those kinds of obstacles in front of you. You want to kind of make sure that you're doing this as easily as possible. You're making life as easy as possible for yourself.
When a person actually comes for an interview, like, how much does their, like, personality matter in terms of, like, fitting into the company space? Like, I mean, because there's some brilliant people I'm sure who have come who might be really, really stuck up or really, really serious, which, I mean, you have to be serious with your work. But I mean, if you take everything too seriously, I don't think podcasting is a space for you.
I don't think it's just about podcasting. I think this applies to all companies, right? I mean, like, there are a couple of different axes around which you kind of evaluate a candidate, right? I mean, like, first you look at what is his general education. Second, you look at what's his fluidity with communication and stuff like that. And I mean, like, the third thing that you do look at is, I mean, like, how do they present themselves? Right. So, I mean, like, you look at all of these different things. You look at how they're going to fit into company culture. So you have to look at all of these kinds of different axes and kind of make a combined judgment based on all of it, right? So, I mean, like, you might be the smartest guy in the world. You might have great communication. But you might be the kind of guy who's just not going to fit in at all, right? And fitting in is not necessarily, by fitting in, I don't mean...
making friends with everyone.
Yeah, by fitting in, I mean, like, have the ability to work with teams, work with people in kind of ways, right? So, I mean, like, that becomes really, really critical. There's no exact science to determining what that is, but at the same time, you kind of have to make a judgment as to whether or not you think somebody's going to be able to work with everybody who's around. So culture is culture is very, very important in that context, right? You want to kind of make sure that whoever you get on board fits with what you are envisioning as your company culture.
So usually after an interview or during an interview, how long after you have actually met the person has your mind, like, 80% been made up?
That's a good question. To be honest with you, I try to kind of be as... so generally interviewing is a process, right? I mean, like, you're interviewing probably for any given opening, you're interviewing at least maybe 15, 20 people at that point. I might like the person who I want to get on board as number 1 out of those 20 or number 18 out of those 20. I don't really know, right? So you try and keep an open mind as far as possible. But at the same time, you do rate candidates, right? I mean, like, when somebody comes in, you'll be like, yeah, I like this guy quite a bit. I don't think that she's going to work out. I think that she would be a good fit in this place instead of this place. So, you kind of make those kinds of determinations as you go on. You make detailed notes about every person who you meet.
Yeah.
And then at the end of your process, right, you go through all the notes and kind of figure out what's there at that point. So, it feels a little too fly by the seat of your pants to kind of just determine based on that single conversation that you had as to whether or not that person's going to be a person who's going to come on board. I like to kind of run it through a little bit more of a rigorous process. Earlier, I used to do all the interviewing myself, right? Mm-hmm. About a year and a half ago, I decided that, okay, we're going to run everybody through 2 or 3 conversations. I don't want to be the only person who people talk to. Right. I want it to be that, and I want opinions from everybody as to what they think of the person who's going to join on board. So we kind of started running the process started running it through more of a process. And I think that is essential to get the right people on. And again, to ensure that culture fit and all that kind of stuff.
Because the only real, as a candidate who's, applying for a job, you apply one day and then you hear after a certain period of time. Now that certain period of time for different companies is obviously different. For some people you find out the next day, no, you're not getting it.
Right.
Because, it's a very easy decision in some cases. In other cases, it takes longer, maybe a week, maybe even a month to come back. So, as a company, how many candidates do you look at before actually wanting to make a decision? Because, the first one could be the best one. But
so generally I set a time period that we're going to interview from this time to this time.
Okay.
Right? So let's say we have an opening for a producer, right? Which is what you're doing here, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll be like, okay, we're going to put out a call for resumes right now. We'll start getting resumes, will start coming in. So let's say today is Tuesday, right? So we'll wait till Friday for all the resumes to come in, okay? On the course of Monday and Tuesday, we'll shortlist who we want to get in for interviews. We will schedule them over the next week.
Okay.
Right? And we'll try and schedule whoever we can in the next 7 days. And whoever can come, whoever cannot come, I'm sorry, that's it. But then that basically gives us those 7 days to kind of talk to as many people as we want to, or rather talk to the entire list and then make a determination based on that, following that.
So if you had one piece of advice in one line to give anyone going for an interview in the next few months, what would it be?
Be professional when you go in for an interview. Don't go dressed in shorts and stuff like that. It's a problem. It happens. Okay, so one other thing, right? If you're, and again, this might vary depending on company to company, but this is my opinion, so mileage may vary in different places. No fresher has done enough to justify a 4-page resume. Nobody. Okay? If you're a fresher, everything I need to know about you, you can tell me in a page.
Right.
Okay? So do that.
Okay.
Right? No, because it really is, right? See, you get detailed biodata for people with 20 years experience.
Makes sense.
Right? When you're talking about somebody who is just getting out of college, I know what you've done in college. You've taken a degree, you got some marks, you've done some extracurriculars, you maybe have done an internship or 2.
Right.
Right? You can put all of that in 1 page. I don't need to see 4 pages. I also, this is a particularly Indian thing, and it annoys the crap out of me. But I don't expect anybody else to change. Please don't put reading, listening to music, and cricket as your hobby.
Wow. All right, guys, that was our episode on how to get hired or fired with Amit Doshi. So if you guys have any funny interview stories or interview tips, you guys can reach us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at our handle, IVM Podcasts. Until next time, bye.
He bends down to test the warm water for his bath. He comes here to quench his thirst for a hot shower and some podcasts. You can witness how he enjoys having other people talk about cool stuff in his bathroom. Indeed, it helps him with his loneliness. You can find more of his species on ivmpodcast.com, your one-stop destination where you can check out the coolest Indian podcasts. Happy listening.